Hello and welcome back. NBA DFS Slate Breakdown for Wednesday, February 28th. We are here. We are back. We got 6 games to go over. But before we do, as always, come join us at Line Star. Great prices, $39.99 per month, $239 for the year. Lowest deal you're going to find in the industry. You get all the sports, all the DFS, all the props we cover for that one low price. Come join us, get in the fun, come hang out and chat, and let's have a good time. Now, let's jump in. 6-gamer tonight. There is some injury news we're waiting on for sure that is likely to cause a bit of a stir on in this slate. One, Minnesota has Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards questionable. The Pelicans, which we will know before lock at least, has Ingram, McCollum, and Williamson all questionable. So some big-time situations that we will have to monitor throughout the day, as well as LeBron James still being questionable for the Lakers. And if he's out, that the Lakers become very interesting, as the Clippers already are interesting. So also, Sacramento has De'Aaron Fox questionable. Now, let's get into it. So, starting at the top, starting with point guard, Jordan Goodwin, 33% owned, 4.4K. Look, it's hard to really make what's going on with him right here. It's expected that he starts. Kennard and Concar are either doubtful or out. And Kennard's been the one starting at point guard, but not really playing point guard. It's been more Vince Williams a little bit playing the position. He's playing more of a point forward situation. So it is expected that Goodwin starts. He might not, though. And if he doesn't start, I'd be very wary of him. He sat out last game. Game before that, he was just did not play. When everybody thought he was going to play. So if he doesn't start, I would be very worried about him. But if he's starting, he obviously looks good. He started once, played 29 minutes. We have him at 26. At 26 minutes, he looks really good. Anything on plus of that, and he'll look great. So not too surprised. Next, we got Emmanuel Quickley. Guy's been playing pretty well lately. 45 a couple days ago, 37, 34. My issue with him, like I always say, is that's about his ceiling. So you're paying a price that is close to ceiling, and that's just not something I like to do at high ownership. So I'm not going to have a ton of him, but I understand why people are going there. It's a very good matchup. He absolutely could get there today, but I'm going to just take the chance that maybe he doesn't. James Harden, 9K. Man's price is up there these days, but look, no PG-13, and it just gives a huge boost to Harden. He's 1.1 fantasy per minute guy over his last 20 starts. Without Paul George, that goes up to like 1.25. So it's a big boost not having Paul George. Thus, I'm getting quite a lot of him. Now pivot wise, I got to put my man Luka in there. The guy's been balling. He's in a very good matchup, and I don't mind going back at a little lower ownership. And I have some interesting kind of value plays that I do like today, so I think we can fit him in a little bit. CJ McCollum, 7.4K. He's been out 2 games. Not sure if he's going to play tonight, so just be wary of that. But if he does, I like him a lot. I think he's in a really good spot, and just generally goes undervalued for the points that he's been scoring. He's been right around 40 and more consistent at that than Emmanuel Quickley when he's only $300 more, and he has a little bit more of a ceiling than Quickley. So I'm intrigued with going with McCollum in a huge pace up spot. He is coming off a ankle injury, so not totally sure how, what his minutes will be, but I think 32 is fine. That's what we had him for projected for. All right, next we got IO. So I think IO is interesting. I went there yesterday, didn't totally play out, but he actually gets a boost with Drummond on the court. So if Drummond is starting, I think it makes a little more sense to go to IO than it does before. I think that it's very logical that Drummond probably starts. Caruso's banged up, got banged up again yesterday. And last time they played the Cavs, they went two bigs with Drummond and Vucevic. So I am definitely a little bit intrigued to go with Io. Been playing big time minutes. I do worry a little bit that with Drummond starting, maybe he doesn't get up to 38 minutes. Maybe he's more like 36, 34. And if he's only at 34, I don't think he's going to pay off. But at 38, he will. So intrigued, but definitely going to need to watch news as it comes out. Now, point guard on DraftKings, we got James Harden, we got Terrence Mann, and Jordan Goodwin. Harden is just too cheap on DK. Terrence Mann, 4,400. You know, he's not a high usage guy, but he's going to get extra minutes without Paul George. He's averaging 25.5 minutes per game, but without Paul George, it's more around 30. So extra 5 minutes to do his work. He doesn't really get a big fantasy per minute bump without Paul George. He's still right around that 0.7 area, but that 5 minutes is, very helpful. Definitely could make him useful there. So I get why some people are going there. My issue, unless he has, a game where he's just absolutely draining threes, then he just doesn't have a ceiling. And that game is not going to happen very often. In fact, it's is the only time he's been over 30 all season. So I don't expect this again. Mid-20s, high 20s, totally possible. Just not a giant ceiling. And good one we went over. And moving on over to the matchup tool. Let's go back to our new tool again. I think shows a little more perspective of where guys are good and not. All right, so Luka Doncic on the very top, as well as Harden and Quickly. So those are really the guys I liked, or the high-owned guys. All three of them we have talked about. I think Halliburton is actually fairly interesting. He hasn't been playing very well, so his prices came down, but he's in a very good matchup, and it could even be a better matchup if McCollum is out. So definitely intrigued by some Halliburton there. And with nobody going there is, a big reason why. All right, shooting guard, we got Norm Powell. He's going to step in once again to start. He had 28 last game, played 37 minutes. That's the thing that's really interesting to me, is how many minutes he's going to play. His usage, it actually goes down once he enters the starting lineup. It's because you got Kawhi, you got James Harden. Those guys just have the ball in his hands a lot. So it's not like he's getting a boost up fantasy point per minute wise without Paul George. It actually might come down a little bit, but he's going to get 5, 6, 7 extra minutes. And that's why he is interesting. I am definitely intrigued by going to Powell. I don't want to go overboard with him, but I do like the spot for him. Quickly, man, Harden, we talked about. Josh Green. I think this spot is fairly interesting for the Mavericks versus Toronto. Green, we've seen have some real high, solid games, and he's been living around, mid-20s, which won't win you a tournament right now, but if he gets, extra steal or block and hits an extra 3 or 2, then you're talking about him being in the 30s, and it's interesting. I think he can absolutely do it. And he's one of the cheap options you could go to save a little money. McCollum, Io, we've talked about both, and moving it on. Shooting guard, Norm Powell, man, RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett is someone you can run it back with on the Dallas side. He has that big time ceiling. Ton of 40-point performances with the Raptors and has shown a ceiling with them. So definitely intrigued in a game that's a very, very high total. It's a pace up spot for him, projected, a solid minute. So all in all, I think RJ Barrett is fine. Definitely a bit intrigued, and 6,800 is not too much. And shooting guard matchups, Andrew Nembhard, Terrence Mann, Gary Trent Jr. So they are good matchups. They are all cheaper options. So, I understand if you want to go there. I just don't love it. I do think that as the slate changes, I might like them a little bit more as, different guys come up or go down. I can tell you one thing, that with Brandon Ingram, if Zion's out, then he looks amazing. If Ingram's out, then Zion's going to look amazing. So those two really have a big fluctuation with either one of them in or off the court. And I'm going to love one of those guys if one of them is out. Now, move it on over to small forward. We got Norm Powell. We got Kawhi Leonard. We got Terrence Mann. Scotty Barnes is one of my favorite Toronto Raptors. He was my favorite one the other day and went for 65. Almost got me a takedown that day, but just a little bit off. 18th place finish. Just needed a tad more. Outside of that, Brandon Ingram. Just talked about him a little bit. I like him if everybody is in. I love him if a guy is out. So I think he's in an interesting spot with or without somebody's one of those other guys being out. But definitely like him in the situation. We've seen huge ceilings, 60-point ceilings out of him. He's been living in the 40s. I think he's safe with a solid ceiling. So definitely like me some Ingram today. Josh Green, we went over. DeMar DeRozan, prices come down, and he put up another 40 burger. 7,800, 40 at 7,800 is not going to win you a tournament, but if you're getting 40 with that chance of mid 50s, I got to be pretty intrigued. And if you look, we have met fantasy point per minute at 1 over the last 20 with Draymond or with Drummond on the court. He goes to 1.1, so he gets a big boost up like Io if Drummond is starting. So I'm definitely intrigued by going to some DeMar, where I think, one, it's a pretty safe play, and he has that ceiling. So fairly intrigued to go there. Now, crazy punt play, and this is more so if, Maxi Kleber is out and then gets a little bump up if Derek Lively is out also. Kleber is doubtful. My thought is if Kleber is out, then he's going to get a couple more minutes. So if his minutes get up to 22, 24, then at his price, he looks interesting. Then if Lively is out, I think he has the opportunity to get to 27, 28. And then he becomes a little more interesting. Now, if that's the situation where Lively's out, then Gafford will also probably look good. So there's going to be changes on this team, how it all shakes out. But definitely a little bit intrigued on Derek Jones. I wouldn't be slamming him in right now based on what we know. We only have him at 12 minutes right now. But if you see this projected minutes start to climb up, then I would start getting interesting throughout the day, because then it probably means that Kleber's out or, Lively or something like that. So he is a guy that I'm watching where he's very cheap and I'm intrigued to go there, but total punt right now. And I wouldn't probably not put him in my lineups right now, or at least at any significant amount of lineups right now. If Kleber's out, or when Kleber gets announced out, I start to get intrigued, but that's only the start of my intrigue on him. Small forward, we got Norman Powell, Kawhi Leonard, RJ Barrett. Went over them all. Get over to the matchups. Josh Green, Michael Porter, and RJ Barrett. Josh Green was somebody that we were interested in, and for good reason. Michael Porter Jr. is fairly interesting. We know this game is likely going to be pretty high, or, a pretty well contested game. It is in Denver. Last time they played there, it was a lower scoring game, but from what we have seen in the past from these two teams, they're generally high scoring. Now, maybe the altitude makes that game a little slower paced, as even last year we can see in Denver it was a slower game than in Sacramento. So a little bit intrigued. Do worry a little bit about the pace of play due to the altitude, but it is a game that I'm keeping an eye on. And if it is super low owned, I'll be taking some swings on this game. And Michael Porter Jr., most likely. Power forward, we got high owned Kawhi Leonard, Scotty Barnes, Jaden McDaniels. Look, no PG-13, don't need to go into it too much. The guy has been absolutely crushing all year, mid-50s just constantly, and solid ceiling. Makes sense to want to go there. Now some pivots. Oh, Jaden McDaniels is there too. Obviously, watch him. If guys are out, he becomes more interesting. As it stands right now, with only Kyle Anderson out, I don't really love it. Might get a little bit, but won't be going there in any sort of higher owned fashion. PJ Washington. All right, so his minutes are coming up slowly with Dallas. Seems like he's getting involved a little bit more in this system, and he's starting to kind of produce a little bit higher numbers. Now, the thing with PJ Washington is we know he has a huge ceiling. 54, 45, and with Charlotte, he's around a 0.9, fantasy per minute guy. So far with Dallas, that has not been the case. He's around like 0.66, 0.7, something like that. And that's just not who we've seen this guy is for years. So I don't know if it's an adjustment, and I'm not sure if it's just because, Doncic and Irving have the ball so much more than he's used to. But with his price coming down so much, I am a little bit intrigued taking some shots here because he does have a huge ceiling. He's going low owned. It's an interesting one for me, and you can definitely pair him with an Irving or a Doncic and, have somebody on the Raptors run it back or something if you want to do a little game stack of one of the higher totaled games of the night. All right, next we got Jared Allen. Jared Allen's just been good for months now, and he doesn't have the ceiling that he does without Mobley, but we're still seeing mid-40s out of him, living right around 40, willing to take some chances in here, and maybe a spot where he sees a couple extra minutes because you have both Drummond and Vucevic, and they just might want him out a little bit more to cover those guys. We can see there are games where he gets up to 36, 37 minutes. We have him at 33.5. He could get on top of that in this matchup, I think. And Brandon Ingram, we covered. Derek Jones, we covered. All right. Power forward, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron, and Josh Green are the high owned on DK. We went over Josh Green already. Definitely like him. He is way too cheap on DK, probably. Has, a solid ceiling for that price on DK. LeBron, 9.1K. A guy can give you 50, 60, so you got to be intrigued by that price. He has a good history versus the Clippers. The game's not at home, but at home, so you got to like that also. I think that LeBron is a fine play. He is questionable, though. If he is out, then all of the Lakers are going to look interesting just because he has such a high usage. Power forward, PJ Washington at the very top here. Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley, all of which are interesting. Evan Mobley, the only reason I don't have a lot of him is because he's only playing 28, 29 minutes lately. If he goes up to 32, 34, I would have a ton of him. So if you think for some reason he's going to get that, then do it. Then play him. But I have a hard time putting him out there just because he hasn't been doing it for 4 or 5 games now. Karl Anthony Towns, if Gobert or Edwards is out, he's just going to be in an absolute smash spot, and I would be hammering it. I don't mind it as it is, just don't love it. right now. With one of those guys out, he's an absolute, almost have to play. All right, into the center spot. So Andre Drummond, PJ Washington are high-owned guys. Drummond, he is not as good with Vucevic on the court. However, he's still very, very solid. And at 5.9K, I'll be taking some swings. With him starting next to Vooch, we've seen him go for 28 minutes and for 35 minutes. I would expect he's more in that 28 to 30 range than the 35. However, who knows? Cleveland has two bigs. That's how they've been playing Drummond when there's two bigs. So it absolutely could be 30, 32, 34 minute outing. And in that case, then he is an absolute lock. If he's in the 28, I think his price is solid, could get you there, but he's, not a lock button thing or anything like that. But I do definitely like him. PJ Washington went over. Sabonis is getting some ownership. He's obviously interesting. He just hasn't had that huge ceiling games versus Denver really in his career. 50 is pretty much where he tops out of, or mid 50s. And at 10.6, I don't know if I really want to pay that. Jared Allen, we went over as well. And on to DK. Drummond, Peyton Watson, Nikola Jokic, all are fine. Watson's been getting some extra minutes. If he gets into that 20, he becomes a little interesting. Not likely to happen tonight, but it very, very well could. And then on to the matchup tool, Rudy Gobert at the very top. This is part of the reason why I say that Cat is super interesting if Gobert is out. He is then going to start at center, and it's a super good matchup, and he gets the boost of Gobert being out. So it's like a double boost for Cat in the situation. Cat's in a good spot now, just would be much better. Zubac is a spot that I'm intrigued on. It just came out that he is questionable too, so got to watch what's going to go on here. It's a late game, so we might not know. But Zubac will have those random games where he gets 33 minutes or 32 minutes or just goes for 50. And he's done that versus the Lakers. 50, played 37 minutes. 33 minutes, went for 41. 35 minutes, went for 46. So he's done it versus the Lakers several times over the last couple years. Definitely a little bit intrigued to go there. Just not going to go overboard because he also could get 23 minutes and do nothing. So I like him. I think there's a little more safety with him without George there. I think the minutes are a little safer and the ceiling is a little higher. So intrigued to go there, but just not going overboard right now. Derek Lively, got to watch this because it could be Gafford and not Lively. And that will do it for us today. All right, guys. Great show today. As always, I will be back tomorrow. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Helps us a ton. And see you guys later. Good luck. Let's win some money. Peace.